This was supposed to be a Halloween tutorial, but alas, I'm late as usual, so this is for all you Halloween lovers who want to keep it alive for a bit longer, or those who just love ghost effects year-round. Today's effect will be achieved in 4 steps. First, we'll use the VSE to select, cut, and overlay our footage on top of itself to prep for the ghost overlay. We will also render out an image sequence for our motion tracking, which is the second step. And that is tracking. We will track different points on my body, which will be used for anchors for the motion of the mask layers. Step 3 will be to create a mask with mask layers and splines and points, parent them to the trackers so they follow the general motion of the body, and then animate the rest of the points to follow the body's outline. Step 4 will be to use the mask layers with the new Blender 5.0 Compositor modifier to create the ghost effect overlay. This new feature connects the compositor with the VSE for real-time compositing in the VSE with actual compositing nodes. And finally, I'll finish up with an alternative method for doing this effect if you have a green screen in order to save you time. So let's get started. So believe it or not, we are using Blender 5.0 beta, the October 31st, 2025 daily build. So happy Halloween, and I am recording this as the same day I'm going to try to upload it. So anyway, let's get started. Let's go to File, New, and then Video Editing. And Blender 5 has a lot of changes, especially with the video sequence editor. So the first thing you want to note is that you have a scene switcher here and up here. So right now we are currently in the same scene, but if I make a new one, just say new scene, then it says scene, and it also switches it up here, but these are separate. So you can actually change the scene up here and change the scene down here. I don't know if we're going to be doing that in this tutorial, but just know that when you change one, it doesn't change the other automatically. So let's choose edit there. I want to also I just want to get rid of this scene actually. I'm also going to take this corner up here where you see the crosshairs, click and drag to collapse that window. We don't need that. And I'm going to click and drag this corner and cut it down across here so we have that going all the way up and down. And then I'm going to drag in my footage here. I'm going to Shift S to snap the strips to the cursor, and you can see my keystrokes over here. Now another big change with Blender 5 is that the strip properties are now over here in the properties panel. So we've got the strip properties here and the strip modifiers, which we'll be using quite a bit. So I'm going to hover over here, press home, and zoom out a little bit here. I also don't want to display the thumbnails because that just eats up too much memory, so I'm just going to turn those off. And then with our strips selected, I can go to View, Range, and set frame range to strips. That way we can play and scrub through the entire footage. So if I press play, it doesn't actually play. I'm playing, and the audio starts playing, but the timeline cursor doesn't move. So that's a bit of a bug. This is just the nature of beta versions. The workaround right now is to come to playback and change sync to audio to frame dropping. You can do play every frame, but it will go slower. So frame dropping is fine. Now we can play it, and then it does actually start playing. And now you can see my hand.
Interesting.
Okay, so I'm going to scrub to the point of the footage where I want. So I'll just show you a real quick overview. You got me laying down, trying not to breathe, and then a moment where I do breathe, and then I don't breathe again. So essentially I'm gonna take this part here. So right here I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, and we'll get rid of this. And then I want, see how this every time I move this, the cache starts moving. This is called prefetch frames. And if I select the footage, hover over here, press N, the strip properties used to be here, but they moved it over here. So we still have these here though, the cache. So let's go to the cache and uncheck prefetch frames. And to access that, that's N on the keyboard. Now when I move my cursor, you can see it doesn't update the cache. And that's going to help us with speed. So let's see. So I'm going to go, let's see here. And then basically when I start to breathe again, right before that, I'm going to cut. And then I'm going to come over here right before my hands start going up, which is 5585, and I'm going to keep note of that because that'll help us in the future. So I'll take these handles here, Shift S to snap them there, and then we're going to see this here like this, where I get up and I stretch, and I look over, I'm still laying there. And then I look at my hands, and then I look at the screen. What? Okay, and then right before I get up, then I'll just cut that here, and we'll delete that part. And something I am going to do, just maybe save us a little bit of headache in the future, is we're going to create a new full copy here, and then I'm going to call this main, and then the other one I'm going to call footage cut, because I want to start manipulating this. So if I come over here and now I manipulate this, actually put this over here like this, then if I go back to my footage cut, it stays in the same position. And we might need this because of figuring out where the start and end frames are of the original footage. And in fact, what I can do is H is just hide, and then Alt H is unhide, but Control H, I guess now is lock. And that way we can't accidentally move them out of place. So then coming to our main scene, we can rearrange these. And let's take all of these to the beginning. So Shift S and snap those to the beginning. And I've overlaid this on top of this. So to get a ghost effect, generally speaking, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is take footage, put it over other footage, and then take that footage, go to your strip properties, and change alpha over to screen or something else. And now, if I can also pull down the opacity, and now you can see we have a ghost effect. So if all you need to do is have somebody walking around as a ghost on the background without having their regular body still here, then you're almost done. You just have to line these up and render it out like that, and then you would be done. But as you notice, I made this harder on myself. I'm actually a ghost or a spirit coming up out of my body. So when I do the screen, or even if you did alpha over and you just brought down the opacity, you can see that's pretty much the same effect, except for without the blending mode. But you can see now my regular body looks see-through as well. So they both look see-through, so it's kind of like a mix. And thus makes an extra step where we have to mask and animate the mask, and that is where your most time-consuming work will be. But before we do that, let's go ahead and line this up. It's best to line, the way Blender works with masking, it's best to line everything up like you want it first, so you're not moving strips around after we do the masking and animating. So we're going to make sure we line it up. I just want to see if I have enough time before I start coming out of the body here. That's a good amount of time right there. So I think I like this here. Now I'm not going to lock these strips, but let's go ahead and put some markers. So let's go to this one, and I'll put a marker by pressing M. And then if you hover down over here and press F2, we can rename this to something like Ghost Start, and then the end scene. Okay, but you can see that the footage underneath doesn't go far enough, so I'm just going to duplicate that by Shift D, and then we can just have that go, and it just repeats, and we're not going to notice anything because I'm pretty still, plus you're going to be focused on the ghost anyway. So, and then we'll just have it end here. So I'm going to take these handles, and we'll page down and Shift S, and then it will end here. So let's see. Yeah, we can go ahead and end it here. So Control End will make the end frame range wherever the cursor is. So if I put the cursor here, Control End, page up, Control End. There we go. Let's go ahead and save it. Okay, so let's see. We got this. This is just kind of like a transparent version of me, like I said. But if we come up to here, well, I got to make sure we select this video strip here. The video strip is the top one. The green one is the audio. And you know what? There isn't really any audio in this, but if you had audio, this is how you would do it. You just kind of keep it here, or you can move them around. See these links here? That means if I move one, it'll move the other one. So I can unlink these and move them separately. Just come to strip and then disconnect strips. Control Alt C will also toggle that. So we'll just say disconnect here. These as well, Control Alt C, and you have to do it twice in order to get it to toggle off. And now I can take these and move them around. So if you like to have all your audio in one place and all your video in another place, you can move those around. I'm just going to delete the audio because I don't need those. And then that's going to make this easier to work with and select. So this footage is just a lower opacity on top of this other footage, you can see. But I do like that screen effect. So this actually will make the ghost part of me brighter, and I like that. And in fact, I might even do add instead, because that kind of gives it a little bit more leeway where I can put the opacity down a little bit more. Okay, so now we are ready to start masking. But I don't want to mask from the footage. I want to create an image sequence. And I just want to check if I go to my footage cut and press 0 to center the timeline cursor. Oh, that's what it's supposed to. Where is that? And it didn't. It's supposed to zero in on this. That's probably a bug. Huh. It's zeroing it on it because it's recognizing the main scene up here. Oh, that's interesting. See, now if I... Okay, well that is a bit of a bug because you want to be able to zero in on the timeline cursor of what the scene is here in the VSE. So anyway, again, nature of beta versions. But what I want to do is come down here, page up, and we want to find our start frame here for the regular footage. This is just for reference, so if we ever need to come back to this, it's 5585. So, okay, now I can go back to main. Let's also go back to main here, 0, and we can come here. And let's get this set up for rendering. I'm going to hide these by pressing H, and then select this one, come to View and Range, and set frame range to strips so that it's just rendering out this strip within this frame range. I don't want it to be transparent though. This is going to be regular footage for the image sequence. So now let's come over to rendering, and then if we press F12, we should be able to see our output. Now we got to make sure that if we go down to post-processing over here, make sure sequencer is checked. If that's not checked and you press F12, you won't see anything. It'll be the 3D view that it's trying to pull from. We can also hover over here, press home, and then I'm also going to pull out another thing here, another area, and change this to video sequencer and press 0 here. Oh, this is still on footage cut. We want our main, so there we go. All right, and we can actually hide this or even get rid of the timeline because we don't really need it. I like to see my strips here when I'm rendering. So I'm just going to click a couple of these. Let's Control T to go to our frames so we can see our frames, just so we can see the numbers here. And then F12, and then we can... And if we want to see this match, I'm actually going to duplicate this view. This is also video sequencer, and then this will be preview. And so now if I scrub through, you can see the preview, and then if I press F12, you can see it should match. Essentially, that's what we want to make sure is that they match, and they do. So let's save it. Okay, and let's come to the Output Properties tab and make sure our resolution and frame rate are good, which they are, 1920 by 1080, and the frame rate is 60 frames per second, which Blender automatically detected when I dragged in my footage. All of this I'm going to keep the same. We're going to go to Output, and then I'm going to do a double /, which means the folder of the current blend file. So then if I click this button, here are my blend files, then I can go up, and then I can add a new folder. I like to do IMSQ for image sequence, and then go in IMSQ again, and then I'll just say ghost clip. And then go in here, and then down here I'll type ghost clip with an underscore, enter, and accept. And you can see over here, if I pull this out, that's the information right here. I'll keep file extensions checked, cache unchecked, and video, change that to an image, change this to JPEG, RGB, and 100%. I'm also going to uncheck overwrite. Make sure color management is standard. If it's not, you can just click override and change this to standard, but it is, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Everything else should be good. Let's go to the start of the frame range and then go to view, frame scene range, and then control middle mouse button to just kind of line these up. Oh, and I don't want to have the thumbnails on this either. Okay, and one last thing, let's come over here. I forgot to put the frame that we're referencing. So I'm going to put SF, which is the start frame, and 5585, because that is from the original footage, that's the frame number, just for reference so we don't forget. And I'm going to do another underscore here, like this, just to separate the frames that will be added as the image sequence is being created. So we've got that That's good. Now we can come up to Render and Render Animation or Control F12. And now you can see in our image ghost clip folder, we have our image sequence being made. And you can see the preview doesn't work for some reason, or doesn't do anything while the render is happening, but that's okay. And the reason we're making an image sequence, by the way, is because it's frame rate independent, and it's also easier for us when we track. I think Blender, well, I've heard Blender handles that better, so we will see. So it's almost finished here, and then we can create our motion tracking setup, which we will do now. Okay, so let's save it, and then come up to this plus button, add a workspace, VFX, and motion tracking. Let's take this and pull it all the way up, and this is where we open up our image sequence. So now we can navigate to our Ghost Clip folder and just make sure we're starting on the first frame of the frame range, which is 71 in this case. But our reference frame range, our start frame, actually I should have just put RF instead of SF, but that's okay, like a reference frame. Start frame, reference frame, doesn't matter. Just make sure that we press A to select everything and then open clip. And now we should have from our frame range 71 to 1285, which should be the same in our video editing, again, on our main scene, 71 to 1285. And that's important for us to match up our tracking. So let's start tracking. Now, why am I tracking? I know we're supposed to be masking, but why are we going to be tracking? That's because it's going to be a lot easier for us to mask something while we have it parented to a tracker, so that we don't have to babysit the movement quite as much. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to start with my Blender torso. So we're going to start with the torso. So before we set a tracker, let's look over here at the tracking settings. The size we can mess with in a minute. I'm going to change keyframe to previous frame, check normalize, and then that's good. The tracking extra settings, I'm going to keep everything the same here because we don't actually need to create a solve, which is helpful for us. This is just so that the masks will follow. So we can come over here, press Control, click, and that might be a little bit too small, so I'm going to scale that up with S, and then we can say copy from active track, and then that changes the search and pattern size. So I'm in the middle of our footage now. I'm going to track backwards from here, and it's just going to track the footage, and you can see once it detects my hand, it starts following my hand, which it shouldn't have, but it did. So right before it reaches my hand going backwards, I'm going to click this button, clear track path, and it's going to clear everything before that because that's when my hand goes over it. So then I'm going to wait till it comes back into view and then drag it and put it roughly in the same spot. Again, we're not creating a solve, so it doesn't have to be all that good. Okay, and what I should have done, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to undo that. I'm actually just going to press Alt and arrow backwards because this doesn't track very far. I'm going to just keep pressing the arrow. All right, if I just hold it down, there we go. So this is where it starts to follow my hand again. We want to disable it after this. So I'm just going to stop tracking it and just drag the timeline. Okay, we can maybe start tracking it here again. I'm just going to do Alt and then, okay, for some reason that's not tracking. Oh, because it needs to actually have a tracking marker here. And right, if you go to the track tab, you can see it's just pink. And if I come over here to where it's actually being tracked, this is our graph. If we zoom in here a little bit, you can see what's happening. And so like if we come over to here, I have to actually move it or click in here and then make an initial track, and then I can start Alt clicking or holding that down until I come to where it is obstructed again, and then we'll just drag it here. And I didn't really make it easy for myself because this keeps going in and out, but once that comes in, we can click and drag and move that over here. We can also click and drag in here, and then we can start tracking backwards again. I'm going to hold Alt again just because I know it's going to be obstructed again. Okay, like that, and then drag that out a little bit more, and same thing, put this back, and then I can just click track backwards because I don't think it's obstructed again till the front. Okay, so now we can see from the front, it may be convoluted, but you can see it's tracking here, and then my arm comes out, and then it stops tracking. And then it starts again right here, and it stops, and it starts again, and you can see how that's working. Okay, so from here, we can actually just track it all the way back, because it's not obstructed at all again. So all the way to the end. And then that's where it stops. And I don't know why it stops at 11. It should be 1250. Shouldn't that be 1258? So the reason this is happening is because even though we started on frame 71, which is correct for our image sequence, it's technically the first frame of the image sequence. So we just have to offset this, and we can do that by coming up to footage and then changing the start frame. So if I scroll out here, you can see what happens. All of this tracking data you'll see will shift to the right. So if I click in here, type 71, enter, you can see that now that goes all the way to the end of the frame range, but we do have to track it backwards just a little bit more to get to the front. There we go. And now that is pretty good. So now we have a tracking marker, and we can add a mask for the torso to follow along. So in order to do that, let's come up to tracking, and we don't really need these here, so I'm just going to get rid of these. So click and drag the corners to join the areas, and we'll do that just so we have as much real estate as possible. Tracking, we're going to change this to mask. Then we're going to add in a new mask, and then let's come down to the mask tab. We don't have any mask layers yet, but once we add in a mask, it will. So if I press Shift right click, you can see the 2D cursor. If you don't see that, you can come up here and make sure that the cursor is checked. I'm going to place that right here, and then Shift A, add in a circle. And now we have our mask settings. We have a mask layer, and all the settings that come with it. I'm just going to double click here and type torso. Okay, so while both of these are selected, I'm going to press Control P to parent. And that, if I select one of the points, you can see what the active point has as a parent. And the active point is always what's shown here. If there is no active point, if I undo that, all of these are an orange color, none of them are white, which is why you don't see this here. But if I click one of them, you can see the active point. That's what that is. The white is the active point. So I'm going to press A to select everything, and then press V, and then I'm going to choose free. This is my favorite handle type. It's just up to you. This means I can move the handles freely from one another. It gives me the most control. So I'm going to scale it up here. Well, before I scale up, I'm going to show you what that parenting does. So you can see that the mask now just automatically follows. And by the way, if you get this kind of glitching with the video footage, just come up here to clip and then reload clip. But now we can see our mask following, and that saves us a whole lot of work and animation. So let's say, I guess we can start at the beginning, and then we can just put the points around where we want the torso to be. Now I want the torso to go a little bit lower to kind of meld with the legs, because all of these masks that we're going to do, they're going to overlap each other. So we're going to do one for each kind of part of the body here that moves. And all we do is take the handles and shape it to my torso here. Roughly speaking. It doesn't have to be perfect, because since we're doing this as a ghost effect, that's actually going to help us. We don't need to do it exactly. That's why I'm only going to use 4 points here. You can add more points if you want by control clicking, and then that will add. And I actually recommend control click and drag. Well, control click and drag, it's supposed to be able to drag out. It's having some sort of weird effect. It wasn't doing this in the earlier builds. That might just be a bug. But if we wanted to do something like that, that might be too much, again, just for the torso. Maybe not. Maybe I will leave these actually here. Okay, and now what we need here is not this tracking data anymore. Let's change this to the dope sheet, and then dope sheet to mask. And that way we can see our mask keyframes if we add them. So we want to add a mask, and here's the torso. So this is the line that it's going to be. We don't want the summary, because that's just going to get in the way. I'm just going to uncheck summary there. And then this is where our keyframes are going to be. So let's hover over here, select all of them by pressing A, and then we can press I to add in our initial keyframe, which we can see right there. Now that's going to be tedious if we always have to press I, so I'm going to turn on auto keying with this button, and that way every time we move the points it will make a keyframe. So let's go to the next frame that we want. Okay, and the way I do this, I don't do this by frames, I do this by motion. So I just look at the motion for two things. One is speed and another is direction. So how fast it's going, and then also when it changes direction. So basically the first direction is from here to here. And then the next direction is from here to here. And the speed also changes. So you can kind of see that's in two parts. It's like from here, here, and then here to here. So that's what I like to do. So I'm going to come to the first, here's the change of direction from here to here. And then at the end of this direction is where I start moving the points where they should be. So you can see it's made an automatic keyframe right there. Now an important note, this one keyframe has the position of every single point. So if I move one point, it's keyframing all of them in reference to each other. And that's because I'm keyframing the mask layer torso. So whatever is in this mask layer, however many points, however many splines, it will keyframe that all in one keyframe. So that's important to keep in mind. Now, if I scrub between these two, you can see it's not changing correctly. And well, that's because this one keyframe stays there until I start to move. So I actually really start to move here. So I'm just going to take this keyframe and Shift D to duplicate that and then put it right here. That way it stays where it is until I start to move. And maybe I can even drag that keyframe to be a little bit earlier. And now you can see it's starting to move more with the body there. And for some reason I have two keyframes there. I didn't mean that, so I'm just going to delete one of those. Okay, so from here to here, and you can see how well that works. It's pretty easy to shape that. But what I also like to do is go in the middle, kind of in the middle range, see if there's anything that's really off, which it does look like it. So, and just adjust it here in the middle. And this is sort of how I work here. And again, this isn't going to be perfect. We're going to end up feathering this anyway, so it'll be fine. But it's a ghost effect, and we have the screen blending mode, so it's going to help mask a lot of our masking. Mask our masking. So now you can see it's even better. So now we can move on to the next one. Just make sure you're saving it. And so here's our next motion from here to here, here to here. Yep, like right there. And now we do the same thing again, just adapt these for the new torso shape. You can also press R to rotate and S to scale on these. We'll be feathering this. You can get it as close to the edge as you want. Sometimes I like to do just the inside, like the very inside of whatever subject you're masking out. And now we can go in the middle of this, from the transition from here to here, and I can see that actually maybe right here we can adjust that. And actually maybe I should take this shape and put it on this, and that's called rekeying. So if I want to put any selected points here, I'm going to do these 2 points. Just shift select those 2 points. Make sure you're on the frame that you want to copy, and then select any of the keyframes here to rekey those shape points. Meaning I'm going to take this position and I'm going to copy it basically over to this keyframe. See, right now it's not, it's a different position. But if I take this frame, these selected, and this keyframe selected, I can rekey the shape point, and now it basically interpolates it from that place, that position. So that's actually better. It's a little bit tricky to figure out how this actually works, but this is basically the best way to explain it. You can go backwards or forwards with this, but this is going to really help you out with animating masks. And when you do that, by the way, I'll just do that again. this option comes up for location and feather. So this is really good. If you do this and then you want to feather it afterwards, you want to turn location off. And then when you do the feather, it'll copy all of the feather to all of the keyframes you've already done. Because if you don't do that, you have to re-animate the feather on every single frame, which you don't want to do, which is why they created this. But for now, we can leave both of those checked. Okay, and then we go to the next one, and that looks pretty good there. All right, and so now we're getting close to where the track is obstructed. So once the track is obstructed, you can see it doesn't move with it. And then once it does move with it, it snaps. So we have to deal with that. Let's go to right before it snaps. Let's just move the points here to match. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then on the next frame, we're going to have to take everything and just move it over. So we're going to have two keyframes right next to each other, one from there and there. And you can see maybe that's a little bit lower there. Just trying to get it almost as exact as possible. There we go. So kind of going back and forth. That doesn't change very much. Looks pretty good. And then we keep going. And that's how you deal with that. So from here to here, this is the motion from here to here. Yeah, or maybe right here. Just adjust the mask to fit. The more points you have, the more time it's going to take to adjust all of them. But that's pretty good right there. And then we keep going. Okay, so here's another part where the tracker stops. From here to here. Okay, so right before we can adjust these. And then just check that in the middle. So you can see this is technically two motions. So from here to here, and then here to here. Okay, and then the very next one, we're going to have to select all of them and just drag them over and adjust, and then just go back and forth to see. Okay, this one maybe needs to come down a little bit like that. Okay, and that's how you do it. And so you just keep doing that over and over through the whole thing and just adjust for the torso. And so what you'll do then when you finish this is you will come back to your tracking, and then you will, let's go to the beginning, and let's just do like the leg here. So because this is going to be easier. So add a tracking marker and then track forward, which is Control T. We don't have our tracking bar up here because we don't have our graph open, but that's okay. Control T is track forward. And you can see it's sliding all over the place now. Let's go ahead and change this back to the movie clip editor and make sure it's on the graph. Now we can track the markers forward and backwards and see them. So this is going to be the same thing. We want to track it until it's obstructed. So right here, maybe a little bit further, right there, and then we can click this button, which is clear track path afterwards. And just to see the information just for this track, let's click show only selected. Okay, and then right when it comes back in, actually that we won't see that, so we're going to put it in a different place, but a similar place, we'll put it right here. So let's track that backwards just a tiny bit before it gets into place, and then we can track it forward again like this. And it doesn't matter, again, if it's in a completely different space because it's in the general area. And since we're not solving it, that's all we need. Okay, so now that we have another track, we can come back to the mask. And now we want to add the leg. We can do the thigh first, or we can do the calf. But either way, we can come up here and click plus, double click the mask layer. I'm going to say RT calf. So the right calf, we'll do this down here. And then I'm going to press double A to deselect everything and then click and drag these buttons so that the torso is completely deactivated. And make sure right calf is selected. You can see it's selected by the blue bar. And then we can shift right click here and then shift A to add in a circle. Now with both of these selected, we can press Control P to parent. Now this also can be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to undo that. And let's see, are they parented right now? No. Okay, so they're not parented. Let's say none of them are selected. You can see if I press A or double A, it deselects only the spline and not the tracking markers. Sometimes this is a little bit tricky. So if I click out, it's going to deselect the tracking markers. And then if I click the tracking markers, then I can select them. But sometimes if your spline is a little too close to the tracking marker, you won't be able to select it. You can see that here. It's very hard, very difficult to. So either disable this, select it, and then re-enable it, or you can just move this out of the way temporarily. Just move that out of the way, select it, and then move it back. And that's by pressing G to grab. But now we have all of them selected. We can press Control P to parent, and now it should be parented and follow the motion along with that. And then we just do the same thing. So we go to the start, and we go back to our dope sheet and our mask, and now we have our right calf, and this is where we put our keyframes. Now we still have the auto keying on, which is kind of dangerous. I'm just going to delete this keyframe here, and then we will press V, make that free, and then scale that on the X, and then scale on the Y a little bit, and then on the X again, and just move it into position. I'm going to also Control click to add in a couple more here, so that we can get the foot included in that. And again, I don't really have to be all that precise in this, thankfully. And I'm going to go a little bit above the knee so that these overlap, because for the limbs it's best to separate just the straight pieces. You could do a separate one for the foot as well, but we don't see the foot very long, so this is fine for our purposes here. But see, now we have our keyframe because of the automatic keyframes, and then we can go to the next frame. Actually, right before I start to move, I'm just going to select everything, press I to add in a manual keyframe there, which is essentially duplicating what we already have. And then while we move, here's the first motion right there, and then I just move everything into place. I can press A and I can rotate the entire thing. And that's what's nice about doing it this way, is because you can kind of just bulk rotate and move these different things for each of the limb pieces. And then you can rekey shape points. Again, to rekey that shape point, you just choose whichever points you want to rekey. You can choose all of them, or you can choose a couple of them. My tip would be to hover over here, press double A to deselect everything first, so you're not accidentally rekeying on keyframes you don't want. And then you just select however many keyframes you want to rekey. You can select one, you can select multiple. If I box select, just don't select the one that you're currently on. That's another tip there. But I can rekey backwards, or I can take these two and then rekey here. If I click this, rekey that. Let me show you real quick. If I press A, Alt S to scale, this is the feather, but you can see I've feathered it only on this frame. And since I have keyframes that come afterwards, from here to here, the feather actually is animated to go away because I didn't animate a feather on this or any of these other keyframes. This is where rekeying the feather comes in handy. So if I take all of these here for the feather, and I want to make sure that it's feathered the same amount on all of these other keyframes without having to do each one individually, select all of the ones I want, and go onto the frame that I want to reference it from, select all of the points that I want to reference it from, and then click Rekey Shape Points. The problem is, if I only do it like this and I keep both of these checked, is then I lose all of my animation. That's why if I uncheck location, so I've got my animation back here, just undid all of that, click Rekey Shape Points again and uncheck location. Now we have our original animation still, but the feather stays. And that's the beauty of the Rekey Shape Points. But I am not going to do this whole thing in real time on recording because that takes several hours. So just be prepared for that and know that when you go into doing this masking, it's going to take you several hours. So you might want to buckle up, listen to some good music or a good podcast, and just go to town. Thankfully, I've already stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning the other night, already masking everything out. So this is what it looks like when you're all finished. And you can see this takes a very long time to do. You can see all of the splines moving with my body, the individual pieces. But so we've got the splines. Let's turn on all of these again, just so I can select them. With this arm and with the legs, I did, again, the separate bones on the joints, but I did experiment with this one here as just one, like kind of one shape. But that was a lot. That was really difficult to move. You have to twist and turn. You can see that right there. You have to twist and turn the points a lot more. You can't select all of them and just rotate it one direction. So it is really better to just have it per bone, because each of them have their own axis. So anyway, you can see how this takes quite a long time. I'm going to show you one more thing, though, just to stable all of these. You can see this green here for restricting the view and the render. That is because I had to copy two different masks, CAF1 and CAF2, you can see here, because I originally started with CAF1 being parented to this one, and I did all my animation up until this point, but this is where that tracking marker disables and it isn't re-enabled. The problem is I couldn't switch. I don't know how to switch the parent, because you can't, I don't think you can mask if we choose an active spline here, here we go, the active point. I don't know of a way to animate the switch between what track. So what I had to do as a hack is to copy the spline. So in order to do that, here, I'll show you how to do that. You just create another mask layer, and then make sure the one you want to copy is selected. So you want to select everything from this one. Then you can press Control-C to copy that, and then I'll just temporarily disable that, and then select the mask layer that you want to paste it onto, and then Control-V to paste. So now I have it on this one and on this one. And so that's what I did with CAF1 and CAF2. So I just copied it on one of the frames, and then it was actually the frame where this goes out of track. So like right there. And then it's here. And then I would just take all of these points, and then instead of having this one selected, I would take that and then Control-P to parent to that. And you can see it snaps out, but just drag it back. And so now I don't have to re-animate everything. I have a new spline in which I can then animate starting from there. But the problem with that is that when they switch, we want to disable one and then re-enable the other one. So I'm just going to get rid of this mask layer. So what I did here is CAF1, and you can see it switches right here. So here's the frame which they switch. So you want to keyframe this by hovering over. You can hover over here and press I to add a keyframe. So I did that for this one and this one, which are enabled. I'm just going to hide. I'm just going to lock all of these here so we can see them easier, just because I can't hide these any other way. I don't know why, but okay, so it's on this frame where we put a keyframe on the restrict view and the render that are enabled, and a keyframe on the CAF2 on the restrict view and render where they are disabled. And then on the very next frame, 630, it's the opposite. So then I enable and disable each of these, so I switch them, and then I add another keyframe so that they switch from one to the other. So one of them is on and one of them is off all the way until this frame, and then they switch, and then it switches to CAF2. So I hope that's helpful. It's a little bit convoluted. It's hard to explain, especially because there is nowhere you can find these keyframes other than just clicking and dragging and finding where the yellow are. The green means that there are keyframes somewhere on the timeline, but not on the current frame. So on 624, there are no keyframes here. You have to actually find it here. And you can see there are keyframes for the CAF1 and CAF2, but that's for the spline. That's not for this, because you can see on 630 there's also a keyframe, but there are no keyframes over here. So I don't know where to find these. I don't think you can. It's very convoluted. It's very hard to do this kind of detailed masking animation. I wish that there was a better way, but that is how you do it to get around not having to reanimate everything. I could have just reanimated the CAF1 and it would have been fine, but I was already burnt out of animating, and I just thought copying and pasting, and then we can just start animating from this frame going forward, which is what I did. Okay, so now we can move on to the actual effect. So let's just enable all of these, and we can just disable the selection. So coming back over to our video editing, this is going to look slightly different because this is the one that I did in my practice, not the one that you just saw me do. First thing is here we can pull this down again, and if we come to the render tab and come down to color management, you can see it's on standard here, but I've lowered the gamma. So if I hover over here, press backspace, it's usually at 1. This is probably what you saw. I had this at 0.633, and actually we can just 0.65 maybe, and that just it overall looks better that way. And so that's going to apply to what's beneath it as well. It's the same footage, but actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to just get rid of this footage and add in our image sequence. Okay, and now this I had on frame 71, but again, it's going to be slightly different. I mean, we can try 71 as the frame that it's on. Okay, and see if that. Okay, yeah, that works just fine. Actually, I have to go to my motion tracking to see what frame this starts on, and I didn't do so. It's not on 71, but I can I select all of these and move them? Okay, I can. So let's do that. Just to keep things consistent, I think I can just move everything over here to 71, and then yeah, perfect. Okay, so you see how this is glitching? How the clip is actually glitching. Just come to clip and reload clip, and that should work. Yes. Okay, let's save it. Justin from the future here to tell you about a problem that you'll run into if you're going to move all of your keyframes over like this, and you have some of your mask layer visibility animated like we do over here, like the CAF1 and the CAF2. So that was originally on frame 629 to 630. So you can see this is 629, and then on the next frame, that one's disabled and CAF2 is enabled. But you can see this doesn't work anymore because we've shifted all of our keyframes over 71 or 70 frames. So here I'll show you the problem this creates in the final render. So once I swing my leg over, you can see my leg disappears. So it basically disappears right here. You can kind of see over here because that's where the mask jumps to. It jumps from here to here. So you can see the problem this creates. And then my leg eventually slips into that mask here. But as you can see, the timing is off. So we're going to have to shift all of our keyframes, and for the life of me, I still can't find where these keyframes exist. I just tried to look again, and I can't find them. They're not on any timeline or graph that I know of. So we're just going to have to manually redo this. So the way we do that is we can just right-click and clear the keyframes on all of these. Okay, so now it doesn't change like that. So we're going to have to go then to the frame that it does, and I'm just going to click down here in our current frame and say plus 71, and it's going to be around this. We're just going to watch, it's this track that we're watching for to be disabled, so I'm just going to arrow over, there we go, so now it's disabled there, like that, you can see. So it's going to be 701 to 702 that we're going to do the exact same thing. So 701, this is when CAF1 should be enabled until, so we can just, it's enabled now, so we can just I to put a keyframe on those, and then also CAF2 should be disabled until here, so I to make sure that's disabled. Very next frame, we're just going to swap those. So disabled, disabled, enabled, enabled, and then I for those keyframes, and now we should have exactly what we had before, but on the proper frame on the timeline. So 701, 702. Now they switch, and this is exactly what we would expect. And now we're not going to have that problem with that leg mask jumping or the leg disappearing and then slipping back in. Unfortunately, I didn't catch this till after I was done recording the video, so you just have to bear with that mistake. Okay, now coming back over here, we should be ready to go, and we can actually even end this page down. We can do Control End and end it right there, like it should be ended. And in order to refresh here, you can go to View, Refresh All, or Control E is the shortcut, and that will refresh our preview. Okay, so now is the fun part. So we have this. If we hide this, we have me just laying there doing nothing. You can see it repeating right there, but that's okay. You're going to be focused on the ghost anyway. So I'm going to unhide this and select it. Now, if you're using a Blender version older than 5.0, you won't see the strip properties and modifiers over here on the properties panel. It'll be down here on this properties panel by pressing N. You can see this come out here. You will have these 3 tabs plus 2 other tabs for the strip properties and the modifiers. And if you are using an older version, you will need to add the mask this way. So you'll go to the strip modifiers, which will be the modifiers tab here, and add in a new modifier, mask. Then you'll choose the mask, and then you will say mask. And this is where you can see that it'll be relative. Now, since we've lined this up already from 71, we don't want it to be relative. You can see it's actually not working really well. Let's go ahead and hide this one just so you can see what's happening. And you can see that it's not in sync, and that is probably because it's relative. It's thinking that the start of the strip here is frame 1. That's what relative means. But we don't want relative, we want absolute. This is going to go based on the actual frame range of our scene, the absolute frame range. So now this should be lined up, and it is. So this is how you have to do it if you want to do it in an older version of Blender, older than 5.0. And so here we don't have that feather, and this is where we can go and we can add the feather to each of these. So let's, for the head, for example, if we Alt-S to add the feather and click and drag. By the way, if you don't see a mask or if it's going inside, you need to switch the direction. And I can also clear the feather weight entirely. And if I do Alt-S here and I try to move my mouse, you can see it goes inside. Just click switch direction and then it will go outside. Now, actually what I'd have to do is go to the start here and then Alt-S to scale that. And then since I don't have automatic keyframe on, I have to make a keyframe for that feather. And then if I wanted to have all of the other ones, then I would have to select all of them. Let's see, this is the head, so that's the first one. So I'd have to select all of the ones on the head. I don't know why it's, I just want these. Okay, there we go. Not the frame that you're on, but this one. And then we go to rekey shape points and uncheck location. That way the feather follows through. And that is how you would add that feather right there to that. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it a different way. It's going to be an easier way using Blender 5. But let's just see what we have here. So let's unhide this. So you can see me getting up. And that's actually even already a pretty cool effect. It just looks like a duplicate of me just is emerging. But we can take our ghost clip and make it a ghost clip and go to screen or add. I'm going to do add like this, and then pull down the opacity like that, because it kind of makes it this little glowing effect. And then we can do maybe a 0.4 or a 0.5, just however you want. And you can see, look at that. That's awesome. And then we have a ghost, and the ghost looks at myself and looks at my hands, and oh, what is happening? Maybe we'll do 0.5, because then you can see it a little bit easier. Yeah. Like that. And so we have that, and what we'll probably want to do is fade in too, so it doesn't just pop in like that. We can do that afterwards. Okay, so I am going to let's hide this and go back to this clip, remove this mask, and add in another modifier, which is the Compositor modifier. Now this is a powerful node and it only exists starting in 5.0. So let's go ahead and click New, and then we can just type Ghost Mask. And now we can open up another area here and change it to the Compositor. And let's press N to collapse that. And here in our new, we can select Ghost Mask. But before I do that, we have this new dropdown where we can choose between Scene and Sequencer. So if I choose Sequencer, it automatically selects the Sequencer Compositor modifier here. And the way this behaves is a combination of the Compositor and geometry nodes. And what that means is we have access to all of the nodes that are originally in the compositor for compositing, and it functions like geometry nodes where you have a group input and then you have your nodes and then the group output. The group input is going to be the ghost clip because that's the modifier it's on. It's working as a modifier just like geometry nodes does. So the group input is the whatever strip the modifier is on, and then we add nodes here. So for example, I can add in a color RGB to black and white and plug that in here, and it makes it black and white because it feeds it out to the group output, which then feeds it back out here. Let's go ahead and bring the opacity all the way back up again so that we don't have to worry about that. Oh, and it's on add. Let's just do alpha over for now, just so you can see the difference. And so if I mute that by pressing M, you can see it changes back to color. So this is super, super awesome. So now we can use all of the compositing nodes in the VSE workspace in our sequencer and see it in real time, our effects, instead of having to render out everything and then import it into the VSE afterwards. It's so cool. Okay, so having said that, let's get our mask in here now. So we can add in an input mask, and then we can choose the mask, which is the only one we have. And in order to plug this in, we need to do a set alpha node. So let's search, and we can type in set alpha or set and then choose set alpha. Plug that in here with the image. And then on the alpha, we can take our mask and just plug that into the alpha. And ta-da! We now have essentially what we did the same way here with using the mask modifier. But now we have a lot more control. So now we can blur the mask. So if I Control Shift and click, you can view this. This is what the mask looks like. And let me just take this piece here and delete it here, just so we know that the group output is actually not being affected right now. This is the viewer node, which is still acting like a viewer. It's coming out here and in the preview, which is fine. But this won't be in the rendered view unless it's in the group output. So just remember that. So this is just like the compositing node. But we can add in, if I search for blur, I already have one here. So I'm just going to plug that right in, and we can choose a blur factor. I'm just going to do 20. And you can see then it blurs the entire mask for us. So all I have to do then is take that and plug that into the alpha, and then Control Shift click here and plug that in, and you can see the effect that that is having. And I can blur it more or less. Maybe I can do a 30 on that blur. I can also do a dilate and erode node. So if I just search again for dilate and erode, you can type it if you don't see it in the list. We'll change this to distance, and then just bring that down, and I can just kind of get rid of the, it just erodes that feather away, or the effect, I should say. It erodes it away. So the combination between these two, or let's save it because Blender might crash. Blender has crashed when I used this before. So this is a good, maybe not that much. Let's do, we'll try 10. Maybe that's too much, but we'll see what it looks like when we do the overlay. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and come back over here. Okay, and then unhide this one, and then come back and let's make this. Now we could do the transparency in this one as well, but I'm just going to do kind of a combination. So I'm going to go back to the strip properties. This is pretty straightforward. We can do this, put this on add, and then bring that down to 0.5 opacity like we had it before. And now look at what we have. Oh, this is beautiful. Our ghost coming up, turn around and looking. What? Oh my goodness. What am I? Oh no, I'm a ghost. Am I a ghost? That's more of a confused, am I a ghost? But that's a bit abrupt right there at the beginning. Like it just all of a sudden pops in. So let's add a little bit of a fade, and we can do that really easily. Let's see. Let's add a fade from, I think, yeah, from here to here. So just place your cursor wherever you want, select your clip, and then Shift A, go down to fade and say to current frame. So now it's going to fade from there to the opacity, which then it makes a keyframe here because it's not actually at 1, which is correct. But if I click and drag now, you can see it just fades in now. And this is a good place where we can actually turn on, if we press N, go to our cache again and turn on the prefetch frames, because then it's going to prefetch this this effect for us so we can see it in real time. So after that gets done caching, I will go ahead and press play. Actually, I can go ahead and press play now, and you can see how it just fades into that nice spiritual glow there. So then we have that. And the prefetch frames isn't going to really help us with this. There's a lot of calculation and stuff going on. That's the downfall to the new features. It's just that they have to work out all of the performance issues and bugs and stuff like that. But still, really cool way to actually be able to do this. Okay, so let's go ahead and render this out into a video and see what we get. So we've got our frame range right. I'm just going to go to rendering, render a couple of frames with F12 just to make sure this is correct. And again, this was from my edit or my practice, so I have to kind of rearrange all of this stuff again. Okay, and we want edit. Again, this is different from what you saw earlier. And we can get rid of the thumbnails here. And we can turn off that prefetch. Okay, and then we can split this window, make this a sequencer preview, just so that we can match these two. So this is the render, this is the final render over here, this is the preview. So if I come over here, this is what the preview looks like, F12, make sure it matches, and it doesn't, so we need to make sure we know why. F12, okay. And this is a perfect example of what I was saying before, where you have to have this plugged into the group output. This is your compositing node. Although it says ignored outputs, I don't know what happened there, so I'm going to undo that. All right, it has to go into the image. There we go. Okay, now we're ready to go. Come back over here, F12, and this is exactly why I do this, because if I thought we were good to go and we just hit render, nothing would have happened. So now we have our different frames, they are matching, and that is how you create this effect. So let's go ahead and go to the beginning and get our video rendered. So we want to come to our output tab again. All of this stuff is good. We want to change this though to a video now, RGB of course, and I want standard. So if that you need to change that, just click override. Encoding, I'm just going to change this to an H.265, HEVC. Then we'll do high quality, good, and 18 is fine. Audio codec is AAC, but we don't actually have audio. I could add music to this and just, click and drag a music file in, and if you want music behind it, which I might do, but I'm not going to show in that tutorial. It's pretty straightforward. So here I'm just going to say no audio. And that looks good. Sequencer compositing are both checked, and that's good. But before we render this out, it's not an image sequence, so we need to change our directory. Let's go up. I like to do a renders folder. And we could type in whatever we want. We can say ghost Justin. And I'll say .mp4. Enter, because that's the container that I have, mpeg4. Okay, now we can save it, and now we can control F12 and render out that video. And so this will take a while, especially once we get to here, because that's where all of our compositing is going to kick in. So I'll let this continue to render, and then we will come back to see the final result. Okay, so we've got our video rendered, and let's see what it looks like. All right, so there we go. We've got Ghost Justin. And you can definitely see some of the edges and stuff a little bit wonky and glitchy, especially when the mask jumps from different places where we had to move the tracking markers. We could also fix the blur and stuff. But this is a good rough draft. You can see we've created the effect that we're going for the most part. But you could also alternatively, instead of masking, use a green screen. So I did this quick today just to see what kind of result I got, and I really liked the result. So same type of thing. You have the original footage. And by the way, just ignore the terrible footage. So we've got the same type of thing coming out. But this is all done by green screen. I didn't have to mask a single thing. Actually, I did mask one thing, but it wasn't animated. So this, if I unhide this is what the original looks like. So you can see just like that. If I hide it, you can see the ghost there. And so all I did was used a keying node in this. Actually, let's go ahead and use it on this one. So if I add in a compositor node and choose the same compositor nodes, we're going to get that same keying effect. And I'm just going to go ahead and hide these here. This isn't a green screen tutorial, by the way. This is just to show you kind of what I did. So initial keying right here is basically I took the footage and then I did the eyedropper and I chose a darker area on the green because Blender does better with darker areas or even like maybe mid-tones. So something like a mid green, like maybe this. And then if we plug that in and see what we have, see then it's oh shoot, let's hide this too. There we go. Okay, this is what it's actually supposed to look like. And you can see it doesn't get rid of the really dark areas. So you just kind of take this and you pull this down. And it does it. You can also just click and drag on the green, see which greens actually take it out more. And it's probably something around here. And then I can also grab and pull that down a little bit more, something like that. It's kind of what it looks like. We can adjust the black and the white levels. This is kind of like a color ramp in a sense. And if you want to see that, you can control click and see what your matte is. So this is pretty good, good enough. Again, that white level, maybe the black level is too much too. Oh, it's good the other way. And for the mask, I did another masking. This I should call this masking. I just did a mask on the upper corners. Again, this isn't animated. So if I go to the overlays and show this, let's do an F12. Yeah, it's from those up there that if you see in the actual footage, that's these areas right here. So I just masked those out. That's what this is. So I just plug that into the garbage mat and then it blocked all of those out. And then you have this, and then we just overlay that on top, and then we do our other compositing. So we do either screen or we could do the add, which is what I ended up doing, I think. And then I brought this down a little bit. But you can also add other nodes. So I added a color balance node. So if I undid that, you can see what that looks like. It made it, well, for some reason, it's actually getting rid of my blur or affecting it. What if I put it down here? Okay, there we go. So if I turn that on and off, you can see you can make it warmer or cooler. Ghosts are more known for like their bluish look, but we can make it brighter. But of course, because our keying is not that great, we have it something like this. So maybe we wouldn't want to crunch those up so high, or just make sure our keying is a little bit better. We can always do that and go back to it. In order to access the sequencer, the compositor nodes, you actually have to select the modifier in order to see that. That's another tip there. And then we can play with the kind of the output of this. Maybe start cranking that all the way down. Oh, that looks a lot better. Oh, not all the way, but like that. Okay. And let's see what we have there. All right, perfect. Yeah, so that's a lot better. And now we can go back to the color balance maybe, and maybe we can actually crank those up a little bit more. Yeah. All right. So there you go. So that's how you would be able to do that without doing the masking, or you could do a combination of that. That's how you create a spirit ghost coming from your lifeless body.